Thank you, Tay. Welcome to our Zoom meeting today. Welcome, Fernando. Uh, this is wonderful. This is the almost the last. That would be like first to last meeting that we have at the National Zoom Sangha, and it's been a wonderful journey for me, and I hope it is been the same for you. When we started in September, we began with the, I guess, inquietude of learning or experiencing or better understanding contemplation and meditation, and how these two or seemingly different practices can be implemented in our lives, and how they can benefit us, and what they are. We started with the question, what are these practices? And so to do that, we started to look into Master Tang Hoi, that took us into a beautiful tour of the history of Vietnam and Buddhism, and how Buddhism came to Vietnam. And with it, Master Tang Hoi also gave us some very useful techniques, practices for meditation, and very good understanding of meditation and how we can utilize them. So, and of course, our friend, our Dharma brother John gave us a wonderful set of presentations for that, and I thank him for that. Then we continued with the question of contemplation. How does contemplation relate to mindfulness, to meditation? Are they the same? Can they work together? Is one after the other or before the other? Or how do we integrate them? And Fernando gave us a wonderful set of presentations on contemplative prayer by Thomas Merton, where Thomas Merton tells us that um, contemplation is a deep practice, also as Tang Hoi, that requires dedication, and it requires commitment. It requires silence. It requires discipline, and more than anything, it requires love, love for life, love for the universe, love for finding that source of goodness within ourselves, to share it with the world. And so now we continue to have the question, what are these two practices? Are they two? Are they one? Are they the same? Are they connected or not? And today we have a wonderful panel composed by Dave will be our first presenter, then Peter Davis is our second presenter, and Ruth will be presenting the third part of this, where we will continue and hopefully broach the question and maybe get an answer or not of these two practices. What is contemplation? What is meditation? How do they work together? So I want to thank Dave and Ruth and Peter for all the work that they have put in getting this presentation together. They each will have 6 minutes to present to us. And then they have very kindly, very generously put some questions for us to ponder upon, to really look into, to delve into, to kind of allow us to internalize what we're going to hear from them, what we have learned, and maybe if we're curious, to ask questions and to have a conversation on these topics. So before we continue and let our friends do their wonderful presentations, I would like to ask Tay if he wants to tell us a few words so that our to encourage our Dharma brothers and sisters today in their presentation. Okay.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm glad to see one of you today. The last few times I could not join with you. I'm sorry about that, but because the thing at our temple, and I was quite busy with the funeral on Saturday. So that is the thing that is I have to put it priority, and that the result of the COVID-19. In our minds, we still have the COVID-19 is still imprints deep in our mind. So we are the last 2 years. COVID-19 had destroys the whole world. It's killed millions of people and hundreds of millions of people in the problem. They are dying. We are lucky that we live in this country, although at the beginning, because the wrong policy that almost 700,000 people died. But now the problem is stopped and the life is recovering. So we are lucky, we are thankful for that. But if we look around, we will see India and many other countries are in the deep problem. So today I hope we could have some time to discuss about the project that we're going to do, that is to raise the money to help India and Vietnam. To show our gratitude to Buddha, to our teachers from the other country, to show our humanity with the other people, and to put our compassion into action. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tay. Dave?
Hey, sorry. My computer like totally cut off and I had to rejoin. So apologies to say I missed most of what you said there, but thank you. So are we good? Am I starting?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So Lin Ji, wanted to start with a little bit of some of the context of his time and teaching. So Lin Ji used some shock tactics of shouting and hitting students with sticks and sometimes obscure answers to questions and maybe what we might call rudeness and so forth, as he used these tactics as skillful means to aid in their awakening. To think that the point is to shout or to hit somebody is to completely miss the point and is to become attached to technique in the same ways we can become attached to words and concepts in conceptual debate. The real point of these tactics is to disrupt the storyline, to destroy or disrupt our internal map, and to show us the map. I don't think we can really understand the skillfulness of the techniques without some understanding of the context in which they occurred. This can in turn help to inform our own practice in our own time. So some quick socio-political background on some of the context. In the early years of the Tang Dynasty, which was founded in 618, Zen tended to be elitist with complex doctrines and distanced from the real lived lives of the people. There was the northern school of Zen was centered in the capitals and enjoyed popularity among the aristocracy and the officials. This school eventually died out. The southern school was the school of the sixth patriarch Huineng, and it was more decentralized and away from the capitals. The empire itself was large and becoming more difficult to manage. The people were heavily taxed and then were sent off to the borders to fight. The rulers began to bring in mercenaries to protect the borders. In 755, the An Lushan rebellion began when one of the mercenary armies refused to leave. This, coupled with all the buildup of tensions over time, plunged the nation into a decade of strife, conflict, famine, and disease that was so severe, and this part really hits home to it. This decade was so severe that 2 out of 3 Chinese died. So then the southern school, as I said, was located more on the outskirts of the empire, and it escaped the worst ravages of the rebellion. But during this time of the An Lushan rebellion, and remember, 2 out of 3 Chinese died, among the teachers at this time was Ma Zu. Ma Zu's teaching style was very direct, uncompromising, and often physical. Lin Ji was a spiritual descendant of Ma's, and the context of their world and their practice was this harsh and shattered empire and the loss of so many Chinese people in such a short amount of time. Joan Sutherland has suggested that perhaps because of the direness of the times, Ma saw that the need was so great that there wasn't time for people to despair or lack confidence or run away. She says it's as if you were saying, we need you to get clear right now about your own nature and the nature of life so that you can roll up your sleeves and get to work. This really speaks to me of like not getting caught in kind of ivory tower type practice, if you will, not getting caught up in all these debates that we sometimes do, which can have a lot of value of their own, but really can pull us away from being directly available in our own lives. Burton Watson talks about the descriptions of the teaching methods of Ma Zu and the other Chan teachers of the time. We find mention of these verbal exchanges between teacher and student, the shouts and blows, other seemingly irrational methods. Ma is said to have been the first one to shout at his students, while Tei Shan, a contemporary of the time, is said to have started the practice of carrying a stick to administer blows. When Lin Chi mentions his own teaching line that he's affiliated with, he does speak with Watson. And also, Burton Watson says the harsh and troubled nature of the period in which Lin Chi lived perhaps helps in order to account for the radical tenor of his teachings and the urgent, almost militant manner in which he proclaims them. So the reason I wanted to go into all that is because I really, some of this is stuff that I've started learning about in the past year and a half, and particularly over the past year that we ourselves have experienced. It's been really relevant to me that, we aren't exactly living in the exact same conditions as the Chinese at that time, but we're definitely living in a lot of strife and conflict, and potentially things could get worse as time goes forward with climate change and all sorts of things that we just don't know what all's going to happen. As far as the questions, and that was more what I wanted to lead into with that quick background, the practice piece to me, the questions are, what is the value of shock in our practice? Shock meaning something that disrupts our thinking, our normal kind of habitual ways of thinking and acting. And what are some of the ways that we can work with this in our practice? And then I had some points of my own, but I definitely want to hear other people's thoughts and questions and go from there. So I'm sure we'll look at questions later.
Thank you, David. Dave, I'm sorry.
Either one.
So Greg is going to share the questions on the screen for everyone to have access to them. And thank you for that presentation, Dave. I'll ask the next presenters, if you can please speak directly to your microphone, because the voice kind of goes away and comes back, and kind of there is no uniformity of sound. So it's hard to get some words. As you
Right.
speak. So we don't want to lose that. So thank you for that. And you will have time for questions at the end of this 3 presentations. Peter?
So can everyone hear me well?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good, good. So the subject of my presentation is the application of meditation contemplation. How are they different? How are they the same? And Lin Chi's response to that. Meditation and contemplation are separate, and yet they overlap, working together hand in hand, like two sides of the same coin or matching bookends that offer us support on either side of our daily practice. The two work together to move us along the path toward realization, freeing us from the 5 ties of lust, hatred, delusion, conceit, and views. The 2 questions that I'm posing for the audience, who is the person who is eternally on the path but never left home? Who is the person who has left home but not on the path? That's kind of like a 2-part question. And then the second question, how do these 2 contemplations work together to allow us to germinate experience and wisdom that allows us to become free people? A monk or nun who leaves home and family behind, renouncing all previous attachments, is truly a free person. In form, a monastic may wear the robes and appear to be on the path, yet in his mind, he has not left a life of clinging to the emotional, worldly, and material comforts of home. A person who is living as a layperson who has left the house is one who has let go of clinging to the comforts of worldly life and in effect has become a true monastic. His mind is quiet because they have let go of desire, resentment, and ignorance. And a quote from the Voices of Enlightened Monks, the Therigatha. This is from Arhat Vanavaccha. Even though my body lives in the village, my mind is in the forest. Even though I sleep in the village, my mind goes to the forest. There is no attachment to one who understands the realities of this life. In Lin Chi's simile of the 2 travelers, when we get stuck in the mud, we have the temptation to struggle. But the Buddha himself became stuck under the Bodhi tree. He didn't have anything else to do but to sit and to do nothing. It's not easy to sit when you're sitting on top of the burning coals of our own resentment, hatred, and despair. The Buddha taught us first we must cool the flames beneath us. In this way, we triumph over our resentment and ignorance. If we cultivate a path of loving kindness and compassion inside, our suffering lessens. When we practice well, we are people of substance that can make a home anywhere, whether atop the mountain peak or the valleys beneath. Master Lin Chi made it a point to jolt his students from their intoxication with knowledge. The monks were obviously been practicing with the master for a long time and have learned much, yet they are still insistent on asking more questions, amassing more information upon what they already have. One monk asked Lin Chi, what was Bodhidharma's intention in coming to China from India? And the master's response, mind your own business. The idea here is don't bother with ridiculous questions just to gain more knowledge. Just like when a doctor leaves medical school, he or she is not truly a doctor until he or she gains real life direct experience outside the university walls. We too must approach the Dharma practice in a way that allows us to be open to new ideas. Too much information can distract our minds from following the path of direct experience. Through breathing meditation and walking meditation, we learn not to get caught up in thinking, ideas, and personal views. The great wisdom mind is already with us. We must have the confidence to go back through meditation and contemplation. When we begin observing our own human story, we have to get out the pen and face the beast ourselves. We begin to contemplate, and then we discover, no, that's not the truth. You contemplate something else and you realize, no, that's not it either. When peeling back each layer of our own experience, we eventually get to the truth about ourselves, about life, and our place within it. Somewhere between the spark and the pan, we find true wisdom. The process of sitting meditation is not about thinking. By using your breath as a timekeeper, we observe whatever arises in the mind in the present moment, learn from it and let it go. Contemplation is observing and gaining an understanding of the truth about the realities of life. Meditation clears the mind from thinking so we can drop the storyline and see things clearly as they are without personal views. Contemplation simply observes the truth about the realities of life as they are so we can transcend them. As we contemplate these, we begin to see the illusions that we become intoxicated with on a daily basis. Our ignorance vaporizes and we understand the truth that transcends the ocean of suffering, and we become genuinely a free person. And I'd like to end this with a quote. Seek not wisdom from the branches of the mighty oak, its shadows cast confusion. Stand instead beside the sapling. There is more light. You will gain clarity. That is all of my talk. And I just made it.
Good job.
Deep breath.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So there you have Peter's questions for us to delve into. And now we're going to listen to Ruth. Ruth?
Yes. Thank you, Ruth Downing. Oh, lovely. Thank you. may my talk be so divine. My focus is going to be on Lin Chi's emphasis on no thoughts, no words, no phrases. And I want to step back just a minute and go back to Tang Hoi. He started his book with the 4 jhanas. And as we all know, when we get to the 2nd jhana, all discursive and initial thought is abandoned. But what I thought was interesting was that even though that is abandoned through the jhanas, we can still do contemplative practice, such as on the 4 mindfulness trainings, and we can do this without words. And it's interesting because the mindfulness trainings themselves are dwelling in the contemplation of body, feelings, mind, and object of mind. So even though the jhanas are wordless in that sense, a contemplation can be the object of the mind. So I want to go next to Thomas Merton in his contemplative prayer. And here I'm just going to read a quote from him that I think is beautifully appropriate. True emptiness to the contemplative is not this or is not that. Whatever you say about it, it is other than what you say. Emptiness, non-doing, and silence are what make a true life and are the path to the oneness with God. And that is the capital G. So we go to Lin Chi, and he essentially said the exact same thing. He said that the emptiness, in other words, no words, no thoughts, no doing, are the path to pure oneness with the way or with our Bodhi nature. Thoughts and words lead to clinging, and clinging leads to ignorance. He said, as long as your mind is unable to cease its moment-by-moment activity, then you are up the tree of ignorance. Now we remember here that in Buddhism, mind is one of the sensory organs, and the object of mind is thought. So mind depends on thought in the Buddhist psychology. He also said that whenever we apply mind, there is immediate differentiation between true nature and its manifestation. So in order to get a true life, we have to be able to step away from thought. Without thought, there is no differentiation between our own Bodhi nature, our own emptiness, and its manifestation. The conditioning of words is what distorts reality. I had an experience at the temple Wednesday evening, which I want to share. After the Sangha, a gentleman came up to Peter and to me and just started conversation. And I must say that he was one of those teachers who was pushing my buttons, one after another. So I thought, okay, Ruth, recognize the unpleasantness that I am feeling as merely that, and stop your mind from finding words to put on this gentleman. Stop the labeling. Step away. Drop the thought process. Be from your emptiness. Be from my Bodhi nature. And keep away from that rabbit hole of conditioning that comes from words and labels. So Lin Chi's keys, I think, here are to let empty manifest itself. To let our true essence, our Bodhi mind, manifest itself without getting into the constructs of language. By doing that, we keep our heart and we keep our mind open and untainted. We experience equanimity. We lessen ego, which is our conditioned thought-produced self. And we allow ourselves to do without doing. We allow ourselves to experience emptiness by thoughtless contemplation. So here the division, that differentiation between contemplation and meditation is dissolved as we're bowing out.
Thank you, Ruth. That was nice and sweet. Short.
Yeah, I made it within the 6 minutes.
So you want to read your questions now? Since you have some time?
Oh, to read them? Okay, the questions or the thoughts for contemplation were our tendency unconsciously to let language become kind of a god, to let our language and our words create our reality, to determine our ethics, and thereby leading us to a blind, unthinking belief. Or system of beliefs based on language. So then the second question was, how can thoughts and words be integrated into our moment-by-moment reality without mandating our daily lives? We have to think, but how can we allow those thinking processes, these words, to not become what we think reality really is?
Thank you. So now we're going to take 10 minutes of contemplation and meditation on these questions, and I'll appreciate that both Peter and Dave read their questions as we go into our meditative, contemplative state. So please, everyone, take your seats. Come one with your breath. And let your emptiness manifest itself in a wordless sort of way. As Dave and Peter read their questions for us to ponder in. Peter, you're muted.
So for mine, Lynchy used shock tactics, shouting and hitting students with sticks, among other things, as skillful means of aid and awakening. While these particular techniques would not necessarily be a good fit in our times, what is the value of shock in our practice? And what are some ways that we can work with this in our own practice?
Thank you. So what is the value of shock in our practice? Is there any value? What are ways that we can work with shock in our own practices? Peter?
Yes, yes. Meditation and contemplation working together, letting go of the mind that is distracted with knowledge so we can cultivate the wisdom that comes from direct experience, how wisdom and contemplation work together to put us on the right road by letting go of attachments to worldly life and find true monastic-like freedom. How do we find freedom when it is so easy to struggle and get stuck? Who is the person that is constantly on the path but never left home? Who is the person who has left home but not on the path? How do these two contemplations work together to allow us to germinate real life experience and wisdom, which allows us to become free people? Peter, bowing out.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
these are two types of persons, one that never left home and one that left home. So who is on the path? Which one of these two persons is on the path? And how does contemplation and meditation, how do they work together? Can they work together in your own life? So these are questions that we will be discussing from each one of us, speaking from our hearts. So let's be for 10 minutes.